And Dan, I'll spotlight you for everyone. So you're good to go. We can see your see that beautiful new website which you're displaying there. I encourage everyone to have a look at that as well. And off you go.
Thanks, Tom, and thank you so much to all the panelists. Yeah, as Tom just said, I'm Dan from the Land App. I'm leading the partnership team, and yeah, really grateful to everyone that's joined today. As Tom's just mentioned, our new website launched yesterday. So please just go to thelandapp.com and you can have a little read. There's different pages for different customer groups, some fun little icons, some animations. So hopefully it's interactive. Plus, unlike our previous website, this one works very well on your mobile. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to whiz through how you can download your field parcels by creating maps on the Land App. I'm going to kind of skim through the BPS process, just so we have it as a base map, but focusing in on those 8, 9, 10 options that we've just drawn, and some of the tips that the panelists gave me. I've actually made some notes, so let's see what happens. So once you've created an account on the Land App, you'll be met with your maps dashboard. And just for the demo today, I'm going to create a new map by hitting the new button at the top right hand side of my screen. And for those of you that are on our subscription model as well, you can assign that to whatever team you want. But remember, what I'm demonstrating is all part of the free product. The way that the Land App is set up is that any individual farmer working with their advisor can use the software for free and complete the countryside stewardship. So you do not have to be in a subscription model for that process. To start the process, what you need to do is import yours or your client's field parcel data from the Rural Payment Agency. So we have a direct API link, so a direct data link with the RPA, where you can click on the import button, type in your 9-digit SBI number. And for stewardship, you need your land cover and hedges, but actually I'll bring down the land parcels as well. And just to explain the difference between those, when I hit import, land cover is the same as land parcels, apart from each of the parcels have been split down into their subsequent habitats, so into their subsequent land covers. So at a very high level, the land cover data is slightly more detailed, but both the land cover and land parcel data files contain your field numbers and field IDs. Every time you start a countryside stewardship, what I would always recommend doing is just quickly hitting the create project button and choosing basic payment scheme and creating your first project from land covers. And the reason you do this is when you hit create, the Land App automatically translates those land cover codes into BPS codes. And actually just for this demo, I'm going to go to the Ordnance Survey lights and my colors are a bit more punchy. So what you can see is that on my arbitrary farm, the permanent grassland's been colored in light green, the woodlands have been colored in dark green. I've got some ponds and some other bits and bobs that we'll come into a bit later. Just on that note, as you're downloading your land cover from the RPA, arable land is just deemed arable land, which doesn't have a BPS code. So if it's got a red outline around the outside of the BPS project, it's more than likely to be an arable field. I know a lot of the options that we've just described for the last hour or so have been arable. So what I'm going to do is just arbitrarily change some of these to arable fields. So when I'm doing my demo, let's just say I've got some spring barley in here, just so when I'm doing my demo, I can have some arable fields to put in, but the principles are exactly the same. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to create a new project for your countryside stewardship. You want to choose the countryside stewardship project template. And just as a note, every time you map on the Land App, everyone else across the country is using the same templates. There isn't going to be a time when you misspell the word supplementary for supplementary feeding or you accidentally use the wrong code. Again, when you're doing this, we'd recommend using land covers simply because then you can relate the stewardship option to the cover itself. So a couple of the presenters before said that certain options are only available in permanent grassland or just conversely only available in arable or temporary grassland. And so the first thing that I do like to do is toggle off all the layers apart from my blank one. I will be through the demonstration toggling on and off this basic payment to kind of remind me where my woodland blocks are, where my barley is and where my permanent grassland is, but it can get a little bit overcomplicated. And one of the main things we do hear back from users is that, why is my map looking so blue? It's probably because you have a boundary layer left on in the background. So if your map's looking blue like this, just make sure that you've turned off the boundary layers at the top left. So countryside stewardship, just looking through my list, the first thing and a number of the options discussed today were whole field options. So on the Land App, the easiest option to draw is a whole field option. So we had a couple listed today. We had your GS4, we had GS6, we had a couple of other ones. GS11, I think, was mentioned, could be a whole field. And the way that you apply those field parcels, or the way that you apply those options, is you firstly select your field, like I've done. And when you select it, and actually I'm just going to transition to Bing imagery just for a bit more contrast again, is when you select the field, that whole field is able to then be assigned a code. So for example, the first whole field option was GS4, just double checking my eligibility, arable or temporary grassland. So let me just double check my my notes, and these were all barley. So if I was wanting to put GS4 in, I can either just click on one field parcel, hit the change button and type in GS4. And then in that right-hand panel, it's not only giving me the name, it's also giving me the code. And remember, if you can't remember what the code is, you can search for keywords as well. So if I search legume, both of Flag Southwest's recommendations are listed here. So the GS4 option to start with. Once you assign that GS4 code, a couple of things happen. The first thing that happens is that that field parcel styles itself. And the styling that comes up on the land app, and we'll get to this at the end, is the same styling recommended by the RPA as part of your submission. So the grassland options are your orange stripy, your arable options would be bold yellow, and your capital items would be black dots or black lines, which I'll come on to in a minute. So the styling updates to default. Secondly, what also happens is this right-hand panel updates. So you can see that my description, which was permanent grassland, because that's what I downloaded from the RPA, but in my head, remember, this is spring barley. So this is an arable field I'm putting into GS4, plus a hyperlink appears on the right-hand side. And a couple of the questions that came through the chat and during the demonstrations, the guidance notes are referred to quite a lot. And so what we've done at the Land App is just input the URL for each of those. If you click on that, that takes you directly into the guidance notes for that option. So everything that Sarah eloquently said earlier should be listed in here, including, you know, how much we paid, what's eligible, what should be used, and where it can't be used as well. So do always check your options against your eligibility. Unfortunately, although we're working on it, the Land App at the moment can't tell you if you are or are not eligible. It's still down to you putting that data in. So those whole field options can be quickly done at scale as well. So it might be, you know, where you've got 5 more GS4s to go in. So instead of individually clicking on one and hitting change, you can hold that shift key on your keyboard and select multiple, and then change multiple at the same time. So what I've done there is I've selected 4 field parcels and changed them. Once you've got them labeled, you can multi-select all of the GS4s by right-clicking, clicking select feature type, and this is now highlighted all of my GS4s. And then just for the demonstration, I'm going to put on the areas and the option code like so. And the way I did that is I clicked the eye icon on the right-hand panel next to the label I wanted to attach. So that's assigning a whole field. A couple of the options, however, and I think there was kind of a reoccurring theme through the demonstration, is that where possible, we want to get rid of tricky corners, and for stewardship, it's a really good opportunity to streamline your farming or your client's farming practice by making fields more rectangular. So just taking this field, for example, it's in a bit of a funny shape. And let's say I wasn't going to put it into GS4, I was looking to put it in, keep it into production. So it's one of my profitable, productive barley fields. But what I was really keen to do was explore some of those other arable options. Now, the obvious one that I can see when looking at this, and actually I might just turn off completely, is, I know this is grass again, but let's just be arbitrary for now, is that I've got this extra bit of, excuse me, I think I've caught it off Sarah. I've got this extra bit of land to the south that actually is going to be a tricky corner. So Sarah Wells, you know, rightly said that if you've got these tricky corners, it's best to kind of straighten them off. And to do that, if you right click on the polygon, we've got this split tool. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to cut a line along that polygon to cut off the edge. So if I click once outside the field, click another time on that corner and double click, what that's done is that's taken 0.2 hectares out of my originally GS4. And actually I'm going to take this out of GS4 and just put it back to a polygon for now. But now this has given me an opportunity to put in another option. Now there are a number of options that we've mentioned. What I'm going to do is for this one, I'm going to put in my AB9 because Sarah did mention I don't want it too near the woodland, but I may want it near my hedgerows. So I'm going to put this one down as an AB9. Again, do double check eligibility in terms of the area. There might be a minimum area that you need for your AB9s. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what that is. But also this field parcel again, I think has got another tricky corner here. So what I'm really trying to do is make this field parcel as straight edged as possible to make my farming more productive, but also to try and find those trickier areas for my stewardship options. So another area that's next to woodland, I mean, you could look, depending on what type of woodland this is, actually, let me just double check whether this is ancient woodland. No, okay, it's not. But there are some other options that you may want to put next to this woodland block. But let's just for this example, put in my cultivated area. So I can keep this this field straight, but for those tricky areas, I want to take them out of production, but maybe only cultivate them once, so I don't need to do multiple passes and therefore use up more diesel than it's worth. So that's a really nice tip and hopefully easy to do on the land app. As you look at a field parcel, if it's in arable or even if it's in grassland, you know, you can straighten off those edges, make it slightly more rectangular. And I think if every farmer in the UK did that, would go a lot of way to, you know, getting more set aside that we need, whether it's going into a stewardship option or just being left down that rewilding route. So those are my kind of part field options that's taking off corners. And just as making this rectangle, I can actually, you know, put in different options and split fields in half. So there's no limit to the amount of times I split fields. And every time you do, you'll notice that the area of those polygons are being reduced, but fundamentally the field number contained within them, 0291, is not changing. So each of these polygons retaining the right field number without actually, while also reducing in area. We'll merge these two back together by holding Shift, selecting them both and merging them like so, and turning off my option. So the next thing I want to show you is that you also can draw buffers along complicated edges or around whole fields. So a couple of the options that were just mentioned, I think there was AB8 and AB15, a couple of other ones, may be suited to either going part the way around or the whole way around a field parcel. And the way that you do that is you use our buffer tool. If you wanted to add a buffer around the entire field parcel like this, you can choose this buffer button at the top center, click that button and choose either side 1 or side 2. Side 2 adds the buffer to the interior edge. So you can see what's happened is it's added this extra shape, which I've defined the meterage. So let's just make it 12 to the interior. Conversely, if I click side 1, you can see that it's added a buffer around the outside. I don't want that for this field. So if you're doing a field parcel, always use side 2. If you're adding, say, a buffer to a pond, you will want to do side 1. Let's say I'm going to put a 12-meter margin around the whole of this field. We've also got this rounded corners button that if you toggle on, what it does is it just makes those edges, those corners, more realistic. So if I were to actually add 12 meters, there's 12 meters between here and here. But this rounded corners just actually goes, no, what's sensible is we want to make that corner more rounded, more realistic. So use that. And then the final step is that you have to subtract it. And what this does is this is just going to minus or subtract the area of the buffer from that infield area. So when I hit subtract, my infield polygon has lost that area on the outside. And I now have a separate polygon, which I can assign to whichever option I want. So for example, let's go at, well, actually, let's have a look at the list. AB, which will we be doing? Who's done what? Since we've done that one, we've done cultivated supplementary feeding. So that's related to AB9. Let's put it in AB9 on the outside. So you draw your area, and that's obviously a whole field buffer. May not be like that. And remember, you can split that option in half. So it may be that, as Sarah mentioned, certain options are better on lighter soils, and some are better on heavier. Some are more better on fertile, and some are better in the sun. So actually, if you wanted to put a margin around the whole outside, but you wanted half of it to be, maybe the wildflower option, the flower-rich margin, and one of them to be the winter bird seed, you can split that margin in half. And to do that, again, you use that split tool. You have to start and finish on the outside. So with a buffer, just to show you, you have to go all the way through. But now I've got two separate polygons, both of which are 12 meters, that I can assign different options. So let's put that to AB8. Let's again toggle on my labels so we can see where what is, like so. So that's me drawing a margin around the whole field. However, more than likely, it's going to be that you want a buffer to just follow one field edge. So instead of having it go around the whole field, you might have tracks and access to go through here that you need to account for. So what tends to be the easier way of doing that is if you first select a field parcel, you can actually draw a line that follows the outside of that field parcel. So I've selected the field parcel, I've hit the draw button, I choose the line function, and now when I click once and let go, my cursor is automatically being magnetized to the field edge. So if I wanted to go around here, you can see that the land app is automatically just magnetizing to that edge. If you want it to stay where it is, just click once and drop 1 point and then continue on your route round, like so, and then you hit finish. And what that's done is that's drawn a line to follow the exact field boundary edge. And then in the exact same way that I did the buffer before, you then choose the buffer from here, except side 1 and 2 aren't interior and exterior, they're actually left and right. But again, what I would recommend is just do trial and error. From years of using the tool, I've realized that my brain seems to work out where it is, but for this one, I want side 1. But if you click side 2 and it looks like it's going on the wrong side, just remember to revert to that. Choose your area. Now, what I do tend to do before I hit the subtract button, just a bit of good practice, is I always round corners. But instead of hitting subtract straight away, what I do is I click OK. And so at the moment, my field boundary is still, as it was, and my buffer is sat on top of that. What I want to do is just make this field corner slightly tidier. So I'm not over counting with my field area. And the same over here is I maybe want to do a nice fade onto that. Now I'm happy with the shape. I then go into the subtract tool and minus that off, like so. So now I've got a feature that I can add another option. So I've done AB9, I've done AB11. I think, unless I've missed something, another part field option that wasn't mentioned, but again, have a look. You've got a lot of SW1s, SWs, so soil and water, a lot of buffer strips that you can add in as well. So it might be that you want to add an SW2 on intensive grassland, for example. But again, have a look at all the options. If they're part field or if they're whole field, you can mix and match. And now you've got that area buffered off, you technically could split off, this top area and put that option into, a grassland option. So part field option, for example, on grassland is your GS1s. So you've hopefully got access just with the buffer tool, drawing a line and buffering, or splitting and merging polygons to doodle up what is a plan. So regardless where you're based, you can have a look and work out options. It is worth just indicating, especially with some of those other points, like plant life made around targeting areas, there are already a number of different data layers in. So the priority habitat is available at low resolution at the moment through our habitat networks combined. So actually on this farm, I don't think there are any priority habitats, maybe a species rich grassland to the north. Let me just have a look. But you can see that the resolution of this isn't to the same level of the priority habitat inventory. So there's an ancient woodland block here. We are just trying to get in over the next couple of months, the actual official priority habitat inventory. For the moment, this habitat networks combined gives you the areas where there are priority habitat, such as the ancient woodlands, but it also gives you where the network is. And so this is just Natural England's way of indicating where habitats could be created to enhance the connectivity of the network. So for example, you've got this other priority habitat through here, and the network enhancement zone cuts right through this field. So if this was my client, I would be looking at a way to maybe this half of the field to try and enhance the habitat network. So going into a stewardship option that meets the requirements of that neighboring priority habitat. So for example, one of your species rich grassland options, for example, but then I just have to double check eligibility and make sure I have my survey forms input. And so just to show you GS6, again, I've had both of them selected. Good time to show the undo button. Just select one, put it in for part. I think needs to be priority habitat and overlap. Yeah, so actually I think this one needs to be a whole field parcel option. So just going to merge those back together. Now there are times, and I think it was mentioned, so if this were eligible for my species rich meadow, what was mentioned by Elizabeth there was that some of these options you can actually have options overlapping one another. And just to show you how the best practice to manage that is that once you've got the field parcel selected, in the left-hand side, that field parcel will be highlighted yellow. So at the moment, I've got 6225. The whole field is in management of species-rich grassland. We have got at the top a button called duplicate. What you need to do is select your field parcel, click duplicate, and what happens is it has two identical polygons, both of which are being given the same attribution on top of one another. What you then need to do is just change one of them to your additional options. So for example, the haymaking supplement that I'm putting on top of my species-rich grassland, I've now added to my field parcel, but you can still see that the labels are overlapping. So the best way to work around that is if you turn the label off the one at the bottom, and then just in the name, just for the visualization, give it the code and show on map. What you can then have is your GS6 reflected on the map, while also the data is being collected correctly. So within my 6625, I've got species-rich grassland and the GS15 haymaking supplement, but on the map, it visualizes just like there's two on top of each other. And the reason I hit duplicate, and it's actually quite a nice time to transition into the export of your stewardship plan, is that all the while that you've been doing this mapping and you've been adding your different shapes onto the map, it's been populating a table view in the background. And you access this table view two different ways. The first way is if you click these three dots and go to table view, you can see a row by row breakdown of all your field numbers, like so, plus all of the options that you've added to those different field numbers. So for example, in my 6625, the total field size is, the total area that I've put in is 224 hectares, sorry. And then for each of those options, I put in 12.27 hectares. So this option area is what you need as part of your annex form. Now we have got the area calculations in. However, after this presentation, I've realized there's a couple more that need updating. So as Tom said, we are in the process of just doing a full audit around which prices have changed. Unfortunately, we weren't provided with the figures before release, but we will get through that as soon as we can. So do at the moment take this payment rate as indicative rather than the actual, only when you complete your annex form will you get the actual value. But that has now been updated due to feedback to account for the pence as well. So it's not just showing a rounded value. And this spreadsheet can be downloaded to Excel by clicking this export to Excel button up here, and that downloads it straight to your machine. One key option that I haven't added to my map, and I'll come on to the report in a minute, is my educational access. So as mentioned by the team at Country Trust, the educational access isn't actually an area payment. What it is instead is it's just an application that you retrospectively claim for. But what you do want to do on your land app map is just make sure you have one feature, and it can be whatever feature on the map, but you want one feature to be assigned that ED1 code. So for example, I'm just choosing this little block of areas, choose your ED1 option, and then when you download it for your table view, you will have a line called ED1 to remind yourself to put it into your annex form. On the ED1, and this is quite a nice way for me to demonstrate one other point, is that ED1s require educational farm visit forms. So you can download one of these directly from the guidance page. And so just to show you where that sits, in the same with all of them, you can get this through the ED1 guidance. But for each of your farm visits, you want one of these. Now, what the Land app can be used to do is be a store for evidence for each of your options. So a couple of the grassland options, for example, require your grassland eligibility form, a couple of the educational visits, and it can get messy. But what you can do, and just to show you, is you can save documents to each of your features. Those documents do at the moment have to be stored online. So for example, we use Google Drive, and let's just put my farm educational visit in here. But what that will do is that will provide you with a link. Let me just open this with Google Docs, like so. And I can then save this Google Docs link to my educational visit section on my Land app map. So I've got an educational farm visit stored online. This could be OneDrive, this could be Dropbox, but you can then add a new document to your ED1 called Farm Visit 1, and then just have a link in here. So you and all the team that you're collaborating with can have a full audit trail of all the different farm visits you've done. And that just directly opens the hyperlink to my feature. If you want to get fancy and do it the flip side, you can actually insert hyperlinks to documents from the land app. So for example, let's just take a hyperlink for this polygon. I can copy that link and paste that. So for example, where's the location? I can drop a hyperlink to my polygon like so. And then when I open that polygon, it doesn't only just go to the land app, it zooms into that feature that I declared as well. So there's kind of two ways of sharing live links. And the final point I wanted to add, because I'm sure Tom is looking at his watch, is that you can also store georeference photos as well. So a lot of the options that have been discussed require photo evidence. What I would recommend doing is creating a new project, a blank project, and renaming it something like CSS photo evidence, like so. And then within this project, you can actually upload photos. So I can upload photos to my CSS product, and you can drag and drop them. And let's just say, so these are some photos that I've got of the farm. I then upload this photo, and not only does it then just store on the land app database within your map, but it also drops a photo icon where that photo was taken. So what you can start to do is create an evidence base of your stewardship, especially useful for capital items, of where it is, what date it was taken, and a georeference photo. So you can, instead of having it stored in a file, you can have it stored spatially around your farm. So if retrospectively you wanted to show someone a photo with your GS4, you can come to that photo, and I'm pretty sure this isn't GS4. Yeah, there's a ryegrass lay. But the principle is that you can then see your photo evidence as it's collected. One final real top tip, just to really reiterate, if you're drawing capital items, always select the field parcel that you're drawing them for before you draw them. So if I'm drawing a fence around this GS4 field, select the parcel first, then hit draw and add your line. Say I'm going to add a fence around here, double click, finish, and then give it your FG2 option. If you've had this field parcel selected and then you draw your line, the land app thinks that the fence you're drawing at present is around this field here. So you can see that the field ID for this fence, if I give it a fence code, is 3576, and this one is 5559. So just really remember to click on the field parcel first. Please don't panic if that does happen. Just remember that you can transfer data. So for example, I can move that fencing, which is currently sat in the incorrect 3576. I can move it to the correct parent, which is 5559, like so. And now both of them are stored within the same feature. So that's it for my presentation. Just remember that there is the ability for you to export your data from reports. So you can add a high-level summary report for your countryside stewardship and get a breakdown of the total area of all your options using this summary table. We've got access to all the data layers that you can freely use and print from. And it is worth saying that as of last year, the RPA has accepted land app maps as supporting evidence. Instead of having to use crayons, you can submit a land app generated map. Just please follow the guidance on this right-hand panel. So if there's a stewardship, create mapping guidance, here we go. So just please do ensure that you follow this guidance, which includes ensuring your maps are labeled correctly, that the legend looks correct, but you can use this instead of getting your crayons out and drawing them on your option and fur map. But I can see there's a couple of questions that come in. So Tom, over to you. Thank you.
Brilliant, Dan. Thank you. That was really good. Yeah, lots of questions. So unless you want to take a break, we can just maybe have a drink and then we can get to some of the questions. I've been reading through some of them and I think about half you've already answered, but if you just want to, add any more additional detail or anything, then I'll ask away. So first question from Luke, and this is when it comes to calculating total areas of one CSS option. So let's say you had GS4 in multiple fields. Obviously you showed us the project report, but just if you could show us, for example, on the GS4, how much all of that adds up to. Oh, you're on mute, Dan. Don't want to miss
Tom. Well, sorry, you missed some gold there. No, what I was saying is, so on the actual mapping interface, when you click on one, it says on the right-hand side. Now, when you click on, if you select all the GS4, it goes to area and it doesn't show multiple. We've actually got a proof of concept for that actually just totaling up on the left-hand side. However, a little hack workaround at the moment is if you just merge them all together and then you get the total area, just remember to push back before you do that. So 14.49, etc. I select them all and just quickly merge them to have a look. 19.03, then just push back. But yeah, the easiest, Luke, and quickest way to do it is if you use the report, you then get 19.03 written in here that you can either export to Excel or download as a table view.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Dan. And it's probably also worth noting at this point that everything that you've done in your demonstration is free to come on and do on the Land app. So there's no cost involved in what Dan's gone through, which is if you're not so familiar with the Land app, probably worth knowing. So next question, Dan, it's from Rob, and you did just cover this, but if you have any more detail, are we at a point yet where the RPA will accept maps from the Land app as option maps for applications? So
yeah, so we're still at the stage where they still want a PDF, so they still want a printed version that they then digitize on their side. However, I feel like we've got enough momentum from the ground up that's really pushing for digital submissions, and we're going to work hard this year to, instead of you sending the RPA a paper map, is can you send them a digital file so we can export for free, you export your GeoJSON and send it as part of that. It would be awesome if they said yes, but at the moment, no word of that, so you still have to print and fill out an annex form. So the annex form is still a manual element. So if you've got a friend at the RPA and you want to keep nudging politely, please do and send them my way. Really are keen to have a conversation. But at the moment, you have to follow that print guidance, get a PDF and submit it as long as it's following all the steps. It's worth saying, didn't mention, but just like Google Sheets, you can do online collaboration. So in real time, you can collaborate together. Just, they can either be a read-only, an editor, or a publisher, which I won't touch on yet. That's more for the premium users. But if you're working with a client or you're working with an advisor, recommend when you're building up your plan, invite them as a collaborator and you can work together. And if you're working closely with the RPA, invite them in as well.
Yeah, and that works really well for me and you, Dan. I mean, we'll often be, I'm in Cambridge area or in Bristol, and we'll both be looking at the same map and making changes together. So that's really useful if you don't want to drive halfway across the country to collaborate on that. So question from Lily, or just something that we can be doing. So when we have updated our option payments, we will be able to notify everyone. We'll put it out there that that's done, absolutely. Thanks, Lily. Yeah, absolutely fine. Question from Chris just come through now. Moving forward, we'll be able to create SFI maps in the same way as you've just showed us with Countryside Stewardship.
Yes, Chris, hot off the press, but last week we released a sustainable farm incentive template. Works exactly the same way. Just to reiterate, this is for pilots only, so this isn't confirmed to be what the SFI looks like, but the functionality works in exactly the same way. So you can select multiple fields, choose your different option. So let's go for the intermediate arable cover, and you can generate a report based on that as well. So yes, if you are in a pilot or doing SFI 22, do have a play with that pilot. Just a note, remember the SFI 2022 has got less options than the pilot. So we've actually got all options here. Just double check your eligibility before you apply for the SF22 with all these options. But yeah, templates already in there and feedback welcome.
Yeah, okay, we've still got quite a few questions to go through, Dan, so we'll go very quick fire. Maria asks, will all of this work on the Land app for putting together a woodland improvement countryside stewardship application? So that's WD.
Yeah, so Maria, just recently to show you, we've added all the different breakdowns. So under your WD2, there's quite a few options under, I think here. So we've added some new, yeah, here we go, the P, all your different options that you require for creating a WD2 plan are available. So you've got your open space, your coppicing, your thinning, your felling. So you should be able to complete a full WD2 application using the stewardship template. Let us know if that's not the case, but that's obviously a combination of your capital items and then when you're doing your woodland plan, where you're doing all these different breakdowns. So they're not, these 4 or 5 aren't technically stewardship options, they're part of that WD2 submission. But yeah, Maria should be able to do it all.
Yeah, excellent, Dan. William, three questions. I think Dan answered your first one about land app plan submission. So the second one, Dan, is are the documents encrypted once they are on your server to prevent any personal information breaches? So this is the documents attached to each individual land parcels.
So the documents themselves don't sit on our server. We just hold a hyperlink for that document. So I put this ED1 document on Google. So it's encrypted by Google. It doesn't actually sit on our server. So it's still a Google stored document. All the data as well, though, what you create in the land app is fully private. You own the data. So we've just updated our privacy policy that you can have a look, but all of the data sits on a highly encrypted server in London. So no one, unless you invite them into your map, can access that data as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Dan. And then one other question from William to do with the photo function. Can you talk us through the georeference photos, particularly for iPhone users?
Yeah, so georeference photos have to be taken on a device that has GPS in them, so mobile apps, a mobile or camera that has GPS. You can upload it directly from your phone as is, but you have to go on the landapp.com website and log in. But you can, when you're in the field, click the three dots and upload. Probably not amiss to say it that we are in the early stages developing a mobile app as well, which will make that process a lot easier. But yeah, at the moment it's one photo at a time. You click the upload button, whether you're on a phone, tablet, or computer, and then you choose that photo, whatever it might be. And then oh, that's an MP4, that's not a photo. Tim, you sabotaged me. There's some photos of the chickens that can go on. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, brilliant. And question from Dreda. What's the best way to represent BE3 when it applies to both sides of a hedge?
Very good question. What I did when doing the applications for B3, so actually I didn't show you during that demo, we've got the hedge data here that I can bring down into my stewardship plan just for now. CSS hedges, create the project like so. It should drop some lines on a map. Yeah, so my existing hedgerows are these green things. And what I would do, just to show you, is if I was putting this option to BA3, and actually they're this one because it's either side, give it the code to start with, like this, and give it a label. And actually what I would do is duplicate it like I did before, like this, and then just represent it by sliding it slightly to the left. So what you've got is then you've got two lengths. When you're calculating, then the length that comes out of your report will be correct. And visually you can see the two lines. So at the moment, yeah, our computer just counts the one, or if you remember that you're putting a B2, just double the length and assign the field parcels correctly. But I would say that's the easiest workaround, and then actually just assign the field number as per usual.
Excellent. And question from Rena, are there any further water data layers that are likely to be added? An example of one of those is detailed river network or flow attenuation.
Yeah, so we've got our list of data layers is massive, and it's quite daunting. It takes our dev team about 2 to 4 hours per data layer. So we're trying to churn through. What I would suggest is any data layers that you want, use this messaging system as a bit of a voting. If there's something you really need, it's going to help you. For example, there's one thing, the water quality priority networks. So I think 3 of you mentioned it, but it's not currently in, which is frustrating. I understand. So just send us a message and just say, please, for me to complete my stewardship, I need access to this data. And then that, our customer support team, similar, is going to just, prioritize what data layers people want. But yeah, we've got a finite capacity. We're just trying to get as many in as we can. But yes, if it meets wider objectives, we'll definitely prioritize it.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Dan. So that's all the questions. Oh, no, one more just slipped in. So we'll do one more question for now. So Debbie asks, how can the map be exported into a PDF? And how can you get a legend on there?
Great question, Debbie. Yeah, just to quickly show you, and I'm just going to reset these and zoom to extent. We've basically got a print button. So when we say print, what we actually mean is download an image ready for printing. So you hit the print button, create a new frame. You can then dictate its width, its height, what it looks like, etc. Obviously, I've left the labels on. You choose the base map. So there's free and there's premium data layers. So the free one is OpenStreetMap, which you can use, or Ordnance Survey data and satellite data is premium. Once you're happy with that, hit the customize print button, and then within here you can add a legend by clicking the legend and dropping it on the map. So that will then automatically add your legend. You can make it look pretty by adding logos, headers, etc. if you so wish. The guidance you need to for your stewardship application is all within that guidance document, so do double check that, which includes putting your application reference number and your SBI number on the map. But then once you're happy with it and it looks pretty, you'd have to, if you're using the Ordnance Survey data, hit the Buy Now button, and that will then generate a PDF for you.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Dan. And it's probably also just worth mentioning at this point that there'll be a few of you on the call that will have listened to Dan and said, brilliant, I can just crack on now and get it done. But there's probably likely to be some people that are interested in stewardship where they think, okay, I'm not, particularly techie. And if there's enough interest, then myself and Dan are more than happy to run some more interactive, slower sessions over the next couple of weeks. And again, just in this kind of webinar format, we can go through it much more slowly and take you through that process. So do drop us an email if you'd be interested in that as an idea. So we have a few more minutes left. So at this point, I'd like to ask all of our panelists to Dan, I'll unspotlight you, and if everyone can just turn on their cameras and audio, and just if there's any final questions for anyone out there, for any of our panelists or for Dan. We've been bombarded a bit there at the end, but yeah, very, very welcome to. And yeah, all of the links will be available. We'll send over a recording. If there's nothing else, we'll be splitting up all of the panelists sections and put them on YouTube. And when you leave the webinar, there'll be a few questions to ask, about whether you're applying for stewardship, what options will be the most helpful. And we are also thinking of running a similar session to the one we've done today and carrying them on through the Countryside Stewardship application window, bringing on a few more panelists. Maybe covering another element of what the Land App can do for Countryside Stewardship. So please do indicate, who you'd like to hear from, what specifically we've been through today did you find interesting, and really interested to hear your feedback. So just check if there's mostly just thank yous. Very kind of you to give up your Friday afternoon to come and listen. I found that really fascinating. Again, big thanks to our panelists, big thanks to Dan. And if there's nothing else, I think we're 5 minutes early, so I will be staying on for a few more minutes. But if there's nothing else, and there's nothing else from our panelists, have a lovely weekend, everyone, and hopefully see you soon.